Hello everybody, Mark Schaftlein with you, and this is the Schaftlein Report. It's Thursday's edition. We're broadcasting bi-coastal from beautiful Irvine, California and Long Island, New York. Jeffrey, welcome back to the show. Happy to have you today.
Good to be here.
Hey,
Happy to be.
Yeah, hey, listen, there's a lot going on globally right now, Jeffrey, and a lot of the stuff is unfortunately not good. Economically, things seem to be a mess everywhere. I mean, global bond yields, they're hitting 15-year highs. The likes we haven't seen in a long time. Jeffrey, what's your thoughts on this? And is that the main thing driving markets right now?
I think they're going to go a little higher when the Fed increases the rates on Monday. I think that's part of why it's so high, the Fed rate. I also think that the interest rates are making it high. They got a little more to go up before they start going down, I think.
I think the main thing behind this is the fact that this huge amount of supply has been coming to market. Remember, when the government when McCarthy and Schumer passed through that budget bill, excuse me, and Biden signed it, a lot of spending had been basically put on hold until they got the money approved for this. And there was like the spigots just opened and money came gushing out. Well, that money's got to come from somewhere. And investors are demanding a higher yield. It's the old supply-demand situation. You know, there's a lot of government demand for dollars, and dollars can be scarce at times. So investors are asking for higher yields, and rightfully so. If you expect that this government borrowing is going to continue, then why would you accept a lower rate knowing that if you buy now and rates go up, you're going to lose money? So a lot of investors...
Sorry, but the rates are going to have to go down because we have the Inflation Reduction Act, and everything's going to go down.
Well, that's another topic, and we can touch on that. But one thing I've noticed a lot, Jeffrey, I mean, we're not the only ones talking about this. Bill Ackman, billionaire investor, he was saying that 10-year notes could go as high as 5%. Now, historically, folks, 5% is not a high interest rate on 5%, 6%, not 5, 6, because the current Fed funds rate's 5.25 to 5.5. So he thinks that based upon that, I take it back, the 10-year note could go to 5%. I'm sorry for confusing you there, because the 10-year note's currently floating around 4.25. But mortgage interest rates, they're at 7.25 right now. So Jeffrey, that is going to affect this, the housing market is going to slow it down. We already have a housing issue in this country. And one issue that a lot of people are not talking about, but it's on the forefront, American savings are shrinking. All that excess money during the COVID era is gone, and it's not coming back.
Well, people aren't talking about what's really happening. And I keep saying this, the staple items, what people put on their table, or now school items. I just saw that back to school items, the typical ones are going to cost $100 more than they cost last year.
Ooh.
So all this inflation for the staple items are driving everything up, and people got to take it out of savings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, you're exactly right about that. And, people, Democrats I speak to say, well, why doesn't Biden get credit? Why does Bidenomics not stick? I said, it doesn't stick because it's not working. I said, effectively, they're borrowing from younger generations, spending money they don't have. Look, Biden's out here touting his economic success, and his vice president is saying 40% of Americans are $400 away from being bankrupt. So, I mean, how do you square those two comments? I mean, she's not the brightest bulb on the planet. We all know that. But actually, her point is actually more accurate than Biden's in this particular case. And Jeffrey, as these deficits continue to explode, I don't see how the country can continue on this borrowing binge without it really crimping middle-income Americans and then, sort of lower middle-income Americans.
I keep thinking about two words, debt bomb. But, that's affecting that's affecting what people pay, the interest rates, and that's then affecting what corporations are doing. What at least corporations to consumers are doing. Because they're getting less money, they can hire they have to hire less, and more people are going to be out of work.
Yeah, and you know what? Right now, the unemployment rate's at 3.5%. People say, well, Mark, we've never had a recession at 3.5%. Jeffrey, think about all the baby boomers that are retiring that are no longer in the labor force. The United States doesn't have the problem that China has. I mean, China, oh my God, we'll get into that in a second. But, I don't believe we're going to see a recession in 2023. It's just the numbers aren't there for it. But, and this could be, I hate saying this, good news for Republicans, I do see 2024 as a recessionary risk, because as these interest rates continue to tick up again, historically, folks, they're not high interest rates. I mean, a younger generation got so used to paying 0 to 2%. I mean, that was crazy. So rates, if you look back historically over time, are sort of normalizing to where they should be. I know a lot of people on Wall Street are betting they're going to go down there next year. They may not. They may just stay where they are. And I don't necessarily think that's great for the stock market. If the stock market does deteriorate at any point, it will have a negative wealth effect, and that will increase. It's sort of like the hamster running. It increases the cycle, and it leads to further economic contraction. I see that maybe, Jeffrey, as a 2024 event.
Well, when I was in advertising and we used to, look at demographics, we saw this big bump of people my age that was moving along, and we always looked at the fact that in the 2020s, it's going to skyrocket. These people are going to skyrocket, and they're going to retire, and we don't have the money to pay them the Social Security and the Medicare and the things we promised them. So it's going to be really weird.
Well, you mentioned government promises. A lot of people are on the government dole, and I don't know, Jeffrey, if there's these deficits expand. If the economy doesn't grow to finance this government borrowing, something's got to give. And you never see the government shrink, but boy, I got to tell you something. They may have to go through that. But, a minute ago I mentioned China. 4 big problems in China, the world's second largest economy. Jeffrey, there's reports, and again, I believe the accuracy of these, that the Chinese government is no longer even reporting youth unemployment because it's gotten so staggeringly large. They last reported it at 20%. There are credible organizations out there saying Chinese youth employment could be as high as 30%. That's an astronomical number. And what's happening, if you add that in China to the fact that some of the real estate issues they've got, where big developers are not paying their dividends anymore, they're not making interest payments, there are condominiums, apartments just sitting vacant because people aren't buying them. Jeffrey, that's going to have a spillover effect if the world's second largest economy, is really in trouble.
I've heard that they keep predicting the United States is going to go into recession. China's going to go into recession with all that news. And I think it's going to hurt us, because who's paying off our debt? Really, the Chinese.
Well, they're not paying it off. They're basically buying part of it, but they're buying a lot less of it since tensions have been rising between the U.S. and China.
And as they go into recession, and bad recessions, they're going to buy a lot less. They're going to have nothing to buy, except for submarines and airplanes to attack us with.
Well, it's really interesting. China, we had a dichotomy happen this week, okay? China actually cut interest rates because their economy is so weak. Japan, shockingly, is growing at 6%. It's amazing for Japan. And in Russia, of course, the ruble fell below a penny to $1. So the other day it cost 101 rubles to buy $1. They hiked their central bank interest rate from 8% to 12%. Can you imagine in this country if we raise rates 400 basis points, there'd be calamity. But that's my whole point. I mean, between these issues in China, Russia, China's second largest economy. Russia's got a major war going right now in Ukraine that's obviously draining resources. and creating havoc around the globe. And then again, if some of these technology stocks, they call them, CNBC calls them Magnificent Seven, who had super stretched valuations, some of which, like Apple's not even growing its revenue, Microsoft limited growth, you know, some of these stocks that really peaked out about a month ago are now down anywhere from 10 to 15%. Jeffrey, if that trend continues and the S&P 500 breaks support, you know, you could see some issues. Now, I'm not expecting a 1929 type thing or even a 1974 or a 2007-8 correction, but look, the market's defied a lot of factors this year, and we could see some weakness come up.
The day I closed on my first house was Black Monday.
Oh, 1987. Yeah.
But the interesting thing is that China's spending all its military money on the, you know, on the technology, the building the new weapons and all that kind of stuff. And the interesting thing is that if, God forbid, we had to have a war with them, they have all that stuff, but we have the better soldiers.
Well, a war with China, we definitely do not want to have that. I mean, yeah, I mean, as we've seen from, you know, what happens. I mean, there's no winners in something like that. Yeah, I mean, that's just unthinkable.
I don't think there's winners in any war.
Yeah.
You know.
Let me ask you this. We talked a lot of economics, okay? Now let's break it down to the raw politics of it, Jeffrey. There's going to be a Republican debate coming up next Wednesday, okay? And, you know, we're still not sure who all's going to be in the debate, okay? But obviously with the events of former President Trump, A, do you think he's going to participate in the debate? And B, how do you handicap how the other contestants have to handle this Trump situation?
I think if he doesn't, he's a fool, because it's the first time that fellow Republicans even will be able to see all the candidates. Mm-hmm. And if he wants to set what the strategy is going to be, what the message is going to be, that's time to do it. You know, I find things really weird. Like DeSantis is now number 3.
In some polls, not many, but in some, yeah.
Okay. Brown, who I love, hasn't done anything. Everything's going weird, but I think that polls now are just like, you know, everybody's gut. Now we'll be in the season where people will be able to learn what everybody intends to do. And that's going to be how we know things are going to, as things will start moving.
You know, it's interesting. The conventional wisdom out there is these indictments that Trump's facing are not mattering. And I mean, from a polling perspective, the numbers really haven't moved materially. I mean, the second and third place finish, I've seen numbers where DeSantis is running anywhere from 10 points to 19 points. I mean, probably his median is around 15, 16. Vivek Ramaswamy, he seems to have been in some polls 5, in some polls 10. He seems to be moving up a little bit. The rest of Tim Scott occasionally will bump up and come down. But effectively, Jeffrey, former President Trump is maintaining in virtually every state a 30-point lead. It almost seems like, you know, when I watched the indictment the other night, the Georgia thing, which we'll talk about in a little bit, so unfair. You know, he's doing massive fundraising off these. He seems this cult of personality. Nothing seems to matter for the Republican primary voters. And again, we never like to say anything's over before the voting starts, because the voting doesn't even take place until January 2024, Iowa. But boy, right now, the former president has a commanding lead. My gut feeling is, I don't think he's going to participate in the debate. I think him giving oxygen to the stage, that's just a gut feeling. Now, I could be wrong. He may show up. But politically, my gut feeling tells me he thinks he's already got this race won. And everybody else is battling for second, a cabinet position, and, a secretaryship, who knows. Outside of Trump, Jeffrey, who are the winners and losers right now?
Well, it's funny. Chris Christie jumped up.
He did.
So I'm wondering who he's going to hug.
He's not your favorite. Yeah, in New Hampshire, he's in second place right now.
Yep. I still think it's too early to see, like, what's going to come out until you hear them and the people hear them. As DeSantis might go up.
Good.
A lot of people are saying he's going to go down. It's going to be really strange. If you remember, Jeb Bush,
of course,
going into last 2016, was leading by a lot going into the first debate, and he ended up with almost nothing.
Right. Yeah, Trump really painted him with a bad paintbrush. And he never recovered from that.
Dean was leading he was leading in the Democrat before he went, yeah.
Well, it's interesting on DeSantis. Twice the amount of negative campaign money has been spent against DeSantis as the sum total of Trump and Biden. So that tells me Democrats and some Trump supporters obviously wanted to weaken him. He could still recover from this. Look, the guy is a successful governor. Jeb Bush was a successful Florida governor also. But DeSantis took a purple state and has turned it solid red. I mean, his policies are, the dream of every red-blooded Republican. And yet, his policies, virtually every policy DeSantis represents, the policies, what he believes in, is like catnip to Republicans. But the problem is, there's similar policies to Trump for the most part, and that cult of personality is not changing, and people are not saying, well, because of these indictments, I'm going to shift from Trump. No, it's having just the opposite effect. They're saying he's going to fight it. We're going to fight with Trump. This is unjust, and they're sticking with him. I mean, is Christie the best of the remaining bunch, or Tim Scott, Nikki Haley? I mean, Vivek Ramaswamy, DeSantis? I mean, who's number two right now? Number three?
Well, number two is still DeSantis by a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a lot behind Trump. I think that Christie is only there to beat up on Trump, which is interesting when you think that after the first debate last time, he was the first one to drop out and say, I'm backing Trump.
Well, you saw the writing on the wall last time, too. He's got a major backer. I can't remember who it is in New York. Is it Steve Cohen that's backing him? He's got a major backer who's financing his campaign.
I think Cohen lost all his money to the Mets this year.
He's got a ton of dough. All right. Well, look, let's, we'll agree on this. Okay. I think the debate will be important. It's the first debate. It's the first impression. And I think it's going to be important. Now, with all of the Trump indictments, and look, did you watch things in Atlanta the other night? I got to tell you, I thought what I saw was just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, people are being charged with crimes over emails, over statements that they made. I mean, this is the United States of America. Jeffrey, I was sitting here watching this saying, and listening to commentators talk about a banana republic, and I was like, it is a banana republic. You can't be charging people based upon what they First Amendment statements or what they say in an email. I mean, some of those things in those indictments were ridiculous.
Well, I was expecting them to indict Trump for, like, going in his diaper when he was a kid. I mean, they were coming in with so many stupid things. You're right. He can say that I thought the election was fixed. Abrams, the one senator for governor the last time, she's been saying it's been fixed for 8 years, the first one and the second one.
Right.
What's wrong with him saying it's First Amendment stuff?
Yeah, I think the whole thing, I understand, I don't agree with it, but I understand some of the documents case, the one that was filed. The incitement on January 6th at Jack Smith, I think that's a push. And this stuff in Atlanta, oh my God. It's like these district attorneys in these deep blue counties who made promises they were going to do this stuff to try to get elected. It's like get Trump at any cost. And I think that's how Republican voters are looking at this.
Well, I saw on Fox News, they had a poll that was like 70% of the people, Republicans, thought he did do something illegal, but the same amount said that it's all a shot against Trump.
Yeah. I mean, go ahead.
No, they saying it's not real. It's just trying to go against Trump. It's like, I don't understand it. Okay, if I thought any of it was true, which I don't, I would support Trump. I would go away from Trump, but I don't support him for other reasons.
Well, it's interesting. When the debate happens next Wednesday, I'll leave the debate piece alone. Somebody's going to have to distinguish himself. I mean, there's going to have to be some type of moments where someone can do a breakout. Otherwise, as these things continue, we could very well see a Biden-Trump redo here. And I want to throw one thing out to you. What do you think about all these people trying to criticize the No Labels Party? I mean, it seems like Democrats are fearful that if No Labels fields a candidate, that's going to help Trump. I've seen no evidence of that whatsoever, but boy, a big chunk of the American people do not want to see Biden-Trump in a redo.
Yeah, they don't, because they don't like either candidate.
That's true.
My problem with the big debate is that I don't drink. Because you know how everyone sets up a drinking game when someone says, when someone criticizes Trump for XYZ, you have to take a shot. I don't drink, so it's not as fun for me.
Yeah.
But you're right. But I do think it'll hurt the Democrats more than Republicans, because right now they're looking at left-wing candidates. But the only one that might help them is the guy from West Virginia.
Well, you're talking about Joe Manchin becoming a part of the No Labels. I mean, his name's been bandied about, and we'll see. I mean, look, he doesn't like the Democrats any more than I like the Democrats and their policies.
He's a moderate.
Well, if he's moderate, why hadn't he left this radical party a while ago? I just don't get it. I really don't understand Manchin, because he seems to be against virtually everything the party stands for and everything they've tried to do to him. I don't know. I hope No Labels does field a candidate, because I think it's important that the American public have a choice. And yeah, but we'll see how it plays itself out. But one thing I know is for sure, our side of the equation, a lot of polls, Jeffrey, had showed Trump and Biden plus or minus 2 or 3 points. Now, polling this time of year is still not as reliable, but I am starting to see some indications that despite all his issues, Biden's picking up a point or two more than he really should be, and there's a fairly large segment of the voting population, in some cases 50%, that will not vote for Trump. That could be problematic for the Republican side of the ticket. Couple that, Jeffrey, with all these, quote, abortion rulings where the people, they don't give a damn who the client is. If they have a D by their name, they're going to vote for him. What are your thoughts on those 2 points?
That's, that's a big issue with a lot of women. And
not just women.
Well, yeah, and men too, in blue states. And you're right, they won't vote for anybody.
Yeah, they don't care who's the Republican candidate. If there's a D, they're going to vote D, particularly young women.
And it goes the other way too. Republicans, if they see a D, they won't vote for him because they think they'll be, pro-choice.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I believe there should be pro-choice. Well, when the fetus should have a choice, so they got to wait till it's 18 years old to make the choice. I think that's fair.
Well, I tell you this, with all the rulings that have happened and with the president's negative approval ratings where they are, some dynamic in this race is going to need to change because look, Joe Biden is at an 80-year-old, he's going to be, 82 if he were elected? My God. And it's not just his, look, there's a lot of 80-year-olds sharp as a tack. This guy's not one of them. I mean, Jeffrey, it just seems every day that the guy does something and the media tries their best to cover it up. And they get that Karine Jean-Pierre out there, and she is certainly no favorite even with the left-leaning press anymore. It's really gotten to a point where it's sort of embarrassing that we have someone like this running the country.
But what's really embarrassing that the Republicans don't have an answer. They really don't, and they should be attacking her. Well, really, they should be attacking money more than anything, okay, and maybe the spending, but they should be attacking the Bidenomics because it stinks. It's not working. But one thing I thought of, when you talk about the abortion ruling, I mean, that's one of the reasons why they lost some of the Senate seats they thought they would win. And that's because they never had a strategy. Because the Supreme Court didn't ban abortion.
Right.
The Supreme Court said it's the local government's choice.
Right. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, no question. They threw it back to the states where it was previous to that. All right, let me ask you this. We got a couple minutes left. I mean, obviously the Hawaii situation's been in the news. Beautiful, horrible situation, beautiful town, basically wiped out. I've been there before. I know what saw the town. I mean, it was a beautiful beach town. I mean, God, horrific situation. Many more people missing. Jeffrey, is the administration getting too much criticism? I mean, or is the criticism fair?
I think the administration got out the tools right away. And in that way, they were doing a good job. They did get out the tools right away.
Yeah.
But Biden, when he says, he didn't answer when they said, you have anything to say. I mean, it's just stupid.
That's you just made my point. I mean, the mechanisms of government can do the right things mechanically and operationally. I have no criticism of that. But you got to have, look what some of the great presidents we had, Ronald Reagan. I mean, I still remember, his words, when the space shuttle exploded. I mean, you got to be the empathy in chief or empathizer, whatever the word is. But Biden seems, again, this goes into the narrative I'm talking about. He just seems like he's just not there at times, and it raises my issue in my head. I'm saying, who's really running the show here? I know he's the head of the government. I get it, and I've seen him deliver speeches where he's capable of reading lines. But boy, just in off the cuff moments, I don't know, Jeffrey. It's sort of shocking to me and millions of Americans that this guy's in charge.
Well, I mean, like I said, it's abnormal because somebody says to you, what do you think about what happened in Hawaii? Your first thing is going to be, that's horrible. It's really horrible, and I feel for those people.
Yes.
That's not a politically expedient sentence. It's a normal human sentence, what you should hear from a leader.
Yeah. All right, we got a minute left. Okay, a lot of things happening. Debate next week. Stock market, sort of heading south. Jeffrey, you can't turn on the TV without listening to culture issues. I mean, my God, everything's a culture issue now.
Yeah.
Okay, how do you see things going throughout the rest of August?
Monday, we got 25 more basis points from the Fed.
Okay.
I enjoy debates. I really enjoy. I like to. I look for the flubs, um, and I try to get to understand what their positions are. But I think that debates like this aren't really debates; they're short speeches,
Well,
and I enjoy it. I mean, as someone who's in love with politics, it's like the playoffs.
something the Mets are not going to enjoy this year. All right, you get a little dig in there. Jeffrey, be back. We'll be talking about it. A lot of things happening next week. And again, thanks for joining me today. Good quality as always. And folks, we're going to cut through all the spin. You're going to hear it from us what's really going on out there. But we'll be following it on Wednesday, and we will be back with you next week. Thanks for viewing and listening this week. Got a lot of good things happening, and the United States, as always, will end up coming out on top. Thanks for viewing and listening. Have a great weekend.